Hey everybody and welcome back. Today we are doing my birth story. Not my birth story. I guess it would be his birth story. He is kind of asleep right here, but he'll just be kind of joining us like this. This is Xavier's birth story. I was supposed to, I would have been full term on February 3rd, and I ended up giving birth on January 17th. And I knew that it was going to be before February 3rd because, and this might have to be a whole different video because I don't want this one to be too long with me complaining about this aspect of it, but my doctors basically wanted me to have high blood pressure the entire pregnancy, and I kept telling them I don't have high blood pressure. I just really don't like coming to your office because of all of the BS that they put me through, and it was just not a good time. And so I get like situational blood pressure spikes because if I'm stressed out and like annoyed and mad, of course your blood pressure is going to go up. So I really hated going to their office like toward the middle of my pregnancy and on, because it was just not a positive experience. So I was keeping track of my blood pressure at home, and it was perfectly normal as always. And whenever I'd go to the office, it was always elevated. And I feel like the nurses also did not know what they were doing. They were using the wrong blood pressure size cuff. And they also, I found out later, were just not actually like positioning my arm correctly to do my blood pressure, and I don't know if that was on purpose or what. I find it hard to believe that they just didn't know how to do it, but regardless, they always recorded a much higher blood pressure in their office than at home. So they had me going to twice weekly NSTs in the last like 6 weeks of my pregnancy. And so I was fine with it, like I didn't particularly want to do it, but it was okay since I could at least kind of like go and see that everything is okay with him and stuff. So every time that I would go to the hospital for my NST, my blood pressure was always fine because I'm not stressed out about it. I didn't mind going and doing it. So I went on Thursday the 16th for my regular NST. I went on Mondays and Thursdays and went at 9 a.m. And right before that, I had been on the phone with the FMLA people. It is a long drawn out story, but basically 2 different entities dropped the ball, and I was going to, that's right. You gonna work out that fart? That's right. I was going to basically have my insurance canceled right before I was set to deliver because they had dropped the ball and not done everything that they needed to. So I was so annoyed, like just off the charts annoyed. And I was just like angry, like massacre everyone angry. And so I get to the NST and I'm trying to like calm myself down because I know, I just know that my blood pressure is going to be high because I am just so enraged at this situation. And they had, because of this whole blood pressure situation, which was a non-issue, honestly, but regardless, because they were convinced that my blood pressure was always high whenever it wasn't, they were going to induce me on either the 20th or the 24th, I think, whatever that Friday would have been. And they said, just based on cervical ripeness, if I was ripe enough on the 20th, whenever I came in for my regular appointment, then they would induce me that day. I'm gonna sneeze. And if not, then they would wait till that Friday and just induce me then regardless. So I figured, okay, this is my last NST, just go and do this, easy peasy. And then I go in and they take my blood pressure first off, because that's what they always do. And it was like 168/72, I think. And the nurse was like, well, this isn't going to be good for you. And I was like, well, I just had like a really crappy phone call where I was extremely upset, and wait till the end of my NST and then I'm sure my blood pressure will be fine. I just need to sit and not like be annoyed right now. But instead of letting me do that, she went and called the doctor, and the doctor, because they think the way that they do, said, oh, haha, see, of course your blood pressure is always high. We're going to induce you right now. And that really ticked me off. And the nurse came back and like flung open the curtain like she was a freaking like superhero or something, and was like, "You're going home with a baby today." And I was like, "No, I'm not," and immediately started bawling. Like, it did not matter in that moment like how ready I was. I was suddenly not ready. It was just like, I think it was the fact that like the knowledge of knowing like, okay, I'm going to be induced today was taken away from me, that then I was not ready, because this was not supposed to be the day that I was being induced. I was supposed to have another weekend, because dude, on the way to the NST, after I got off the phone, I was like, don't make any plans this weekend. Don't have people over to the house. Don't schedule like a dinner for us or anything. I just want to sit on the couch for the next 2 days and just like chill out and not deal with anybody. I just want to have time to myself. And that was taken away. I was really looking forward to like my last weekend of freedom and didn't get it, which is okay. It's okay, because you're here now, you know? You're here now. That's all right. But I was pissed in that moment. And I immediately started bawling. I was just inconsolable because I wasn't ready. Like the thought of like having to have a baby and then like come home with him was just like, no, can't do it. No, it's not happening. So I was even more upset then, and I was like, can't you just like wait a few minutes and see if my blood pressure comes down? And she's like, no, we're not doing it. They're inducing you right now. You have no choice in this. And I was like, okay, hate that that's happening, because I was at that point, I think 37 weeks and 3 or 4 days, and they weren't going to induce until I was 38 or 38 and like 6 days or whatever it would be. So I wanted him to have those few extra days to, you know, develop, and they weren't having it. So they took me back to the room, and this was at 9 a.m. They took me back to the room at 9:30. At 10 o'clock, they took my blood pressure again, and it was perfectly normal. Like, my blood pressure went all the way back down to what it normally is, and the doctor came in, and I said, okay, so this means I can go home then, right? I can let him cook a little bit longer because I don't have high blood pressure. I told you I was upset, and now I'm like not upset in the same way. And my blood pressure is normal. And they're like, nope, you are at risk for seizure. We're going to induce you right away, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I've never had a seizure in my life. I'm not at risk for seizure. My blood pressure is back down to normal. Like, this is absurd. And they just kept insisting, like, you're going to have a seizure. And I was like, well, don't freaking say that. Like, don't put that out there, okay? But they weren't having it. So it is what it is. They started me on anti-seizure medication, which was ridiculous. I mean, I wanted to be like, honestly, are you just trying to bill insurance for like a bunch of stuff just because you know I have decent insurance or something? Like, it really irked me. But also because of that medication, which I think was magnesium something or other, they wouldn't let me get out of the bed, and I had to have a catheter in because I couldn't get out of the bed to pee. And that really sucked, because I really wanted to, during my labor, be able to get up and walk around and, like, you know, try to progress things as far as I could before getting the epidural, and couldn't do that because of this. And that really sucked. So they started me on IV fluids before starting the Pitocin. So I had that from about 10 to noon. And then around noon, they came in, they started the Pitocin, and they gave me a Foley bulb up in my cervix to open that up. And I've heard a lot of people say that that's very, very painful. And I have a pretty high pain tolerance, and I feel like it wasn't terrible. It was uncomfortable, but it was bearable. So they put that in there. The thing that I hated the most about it, though, was that they taped it to my leg, so that way it would have tension pulling on it. And that, I guess, in turn is what like opens up the cervix. And I felt like it being taped to my leg was very uncomfortable, because I was aware constantly of like, oh, I don't want to like accidentally pull this out or something. So I hated that part of it, but other than that, it wasn't bad. And then that was in for around 4 hours, and then it just fell out naturally whenever I got to 4 centimeters. And after that, they upped the Pitocin and just kind of let me labor like that for a few hours. And I think it took me, within 2 hours, I reached like a 6 centimeters, or it was like 5.5, almost 6. And then another like hour later, I was at 6 centimeters. And then they're like, okay, we're going to keep upping the Pitocin and, see how you progress. And so we did that. And at this point, I was kind of like, all right, like, this is happening. I'm okay with it, whatever. And the nurse had told me, like, if you want the epidural, make sure that you tell us, like, 30 minutes before you think you're going to be, like, unable to sit still, because, it takes a while to, like, get her down here, get everything prepped and ready and all that stuff. So I told her, I was like, I'm good right now. That's all right. And then she came back like 10 minutes later. And within that time, the contractions had started getting pretty painful, but still bearable. But like, I could tell it was going in a direction where it was going to start hurting real bad. And I was like, okay, I need it right now. So she brought her down there and gave me the epidural. And I don't know if this is the same for every hospital, but my husband actually had to leave the room. They wouldn't let him stay in there while they were doing it, which kind of sucked because I wish that he could have been like my support person there. But the nurse that I had was really, really nice at that point. And she, like was like the one like kind of coaching me through it and stuff and helping me and letting me like, lean on her and everything. So the anesthesiologist put the epidural in, and I had no idea what it was supposed to feel like afterward, because even in all the videos that I had watched to try to prepare for all of this, no one ever really told what the epidural feels like whenever it's working. So I didn't know. And she put it in, and I was like, all right, well, I guess we'll see. And I felt like, okay, maybe it helped a little bit. Maybe it was just placebo effect. Like, I was like, it still hurts. I still feel everything. And what's funny is that they kept coming in to do like cervical checks and stuff. Yeah, that's right. And to change my position and things like that, to kind of like, flip me on my side and everything. Oh, young man. So they kept coming in to do that, and they kept remarking like, oh, you still have really good control over your legs. And I was like, yeah, I can move my legs perfectly fine. Like, it didn't occur to me that that might not be normal. And I wish that they had said something that maybe that wasn't normal. Because nobody, like, said that maybe I shouldn't be able to move my legs. So I had no idea. I had no idea that my epidural had failed. And it took me several hours to realize that there was, like, a major issue. But meanwhile, the contractions kept getting a little bit more intense. Yeah. And they kept coming in to check my cervix. And I made it to 6 centimeters. And then they checked again, and I was still 6 centimeters. And they checked again, and I was still 6 centimeters. And I was like, oh, this is not looking good, because they kept saying, like, you should be progressing more than this at this point. And let me just tell you also that if I had had the epidural, I wouldn't have been able to feel any of this. But because the epidural had failed, I could feel the cervical checks. And I'd heard people say that they were very, like, painful. And I was like, oh, it can't be that bad, because they had checked a couple times in the doctor's office, and it wasn't bad. It was not bad. But whenever they checked in the hospital, wow, it was freaking terrible. And whenever she first did it, I literally wanted to crawl up the wall. Like, I was like scooting up the bed every time that like she went a little bit further in. And I just wanted to like scream out because it hurt so bad. And whenever she was done, I was like, dude, I literally feel like your whole hand was up there. And she's like, oh, it was. Let me tell you, I have never had fisting on my bucket list. But now I can say that I've done that, and wow, it is not pleasant. I don't know what the hell is wrong with you people that enjoy it, but it ain't pleasant. Yeah, that's how it felt. It was very unpleasant. And not only was she just like, it wasn't like, let me try to make my hand as small as possible and stick it up there. It was like, put it up there and then splay everything out and then wiggle it around a little bit. Terrible. It was terrible. So I was feeling every single bit of that. And then I realized whenever the nurse was asking me, like, do your contractions still feel very intense? And I was like, yes. And she started like touching my legs and my stomach and stuff. And she's like, can you feel this? Can you feel this? And I was like, I can feel it all. And I was like, whenever they do the cervical checks, it is excruciatingly painful. I was like, these contractions are getting very painful. And she's like, okay, well, let me see if we can get like a topper. And so they came and gave me a topper. I think it was like morphine or an opiate or something. It was some like hardcore drug. They gave me that and it literally made no difference at all. And like an hour later, I was like, dude, I'm still feeling so much pain. They came and gave me another topper and it still was not working. And the anesthesiologist at that point called back and they're like, this is not normal. That like normally if I gave people 2 toppers, like they would be feeling nothing at all. Like they'd be high as a kite. So she's like, something's not normal. I think we're going to have to redo it again. And I was like, okay, that's a good idea. Because I also had realized whenever I was talking to the nurse that the only part of me that was numb at that point was basically the front of my right thigh from like crotch level to the top of my knee. That was it. Like a 1 foot square section of my thigh is the only thing that was numb. And so that's why everything was so painful, because the epidural had not worked and it was either not inserted in the right way or whatever. So the anesthesiologist came back and did the epidural again. And just to let everyone know what it should feel like if it's working properly, because I didn't know this, once it was in, like the second that she put it in, I immediately felt this like whoosh of warmth going from my mid-back all the way down to the tips of my toes, just like a gush of like warmth. And immediately everything was numb. Like it was like 80% of the way to fully numb, like right off the bat. And by the time that she told me, okay, you can like move to like lay back down in bed, everything was numb and I had to have help like moving my legs. So it was immediate. That's what it should feel like. So if it doesn't, tell them right away that it didn't work. That way you don't labor like crazy like I did. Because the 2 hours before getting the epidural fixed, the contractions were coming like a minute apart and they were lasting for 30 seconds. And it was so excruciatingly painful. Like I couldn't talk. I could barely like move because I was just so tensed up in myself. And I was just like gripping the bed like the jaws of life. And it just, I hope that that doesn't happen again the next time. I hope that this is never an issue again the next time, because those contractions were no freaking joke and they just kept coming. Like it was just a wave of just, I felt like I couldn't catch my breath because it was like as soon as it was over, it was starting again. And even with all of that, I was still only at 6 centimeters. Like the contractions were coming stronger and stronger and stronger, but I wasn't progressing any further. And they came in the middle of the night and they told me like, basically like, okay, if you don't progress any further, you're gonna have to have a C-section. And at this point, my water had been broken, earlier in the day. They broke it around 4 p.m. So a little bit after the Foley bulb came out, they broke my water, which I forgot to mention earlier. But I mean, it was no big deal. Like they broke it. They used a little like hook thingy, broke it, and that was that. It was no like fanfare or anything. So they're like, once your water's been broken for 24 hours, we don't want to let you sit any longer. Like the baby's coming out one way or another after it's been 24 hours. So I knew that by 4 p.m. on Friday, he was going to have to come, whether it was out the exit or out my stomach. And so that was kind of sobering. Like I didn't want a C-section. I think most people would prefer not to have a C-section, probably just because of the surgery aspect of it. But I also didn't feel like I had to push him out of my vag to like have a valid delivery or something. Like I didn't feel like I was going to feel like less of a woman by not having normal birth. So that was not like a concern for me. It was more the surgery aspect of it, because I really was not looking forward to that. But I figured if that's what has to happen, then that's what has to happen, and that's that, you know. So I finally got the epidural redone, like in the very like early morning hours of Friday. And then after that, like they upped the Pitocin to the maximum, and even several hours later I was still at a 6. And we're now getting into like the morning hours of Friday, and the doctor came in and said, okay, you basically have a few more hours, and if no progress has been made by 1 p.m., we're gonna like plan for a C-section. And I was like, okay, that's what we're doing then. And it was just like, it was not a great like feeling. I really did not like the idea of surgery, but I was like, well, if this is what we have to do, then we have to do it. The whole time we were trying different positions, you know, like moving me around and all this and that, and I wasn't progressing. And what sucked also is that I couldn't have any food, couldn't even have anything to drink. So I was just like dying of thirst and hunger, and that did not help either. But yes, young man. Yes. Oh my goodness. It's almost time for you to eat, huh? I'm gonna have to hurry because he wants to eat soon. But anyway, so we got to 1 p.m. on Friday, and I still had not progressed any further. I was stuck at 6 centimeters, and I was not gonna be able to have the baby normally. So they started prepping me for C-section, and you know, I was like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. So they wheeled me into the operating room around 4 o'clock. It might have been like 3:45 or so. And they gave me the, yes, young man. They gave me the bolus of the anesthesia to like basically numb me from the neck down. So they did that, and they had like the drape in front of me, and then they had a chair over here, like kind of behind my shoulder for my husband to sit in. And they got me all ready before they let him come in. And so by the time that he came in, I was completely numb. And it was just like go time at that point. And they were kind of like talking through like, okay, you know, can you feel this? You know, everything was just completely numb. And it was a very weird feeling because I've had surgery before, but it was like under full anesthesia, like knocked out fully. And being awake for it was very strange. But I didn't feel anything. I really didn't even feel the pressure that they talked about that you could feel. It was just completely numb. But as soon as they numbed me, I immediately had a drop in blood pressure, probably also because they had me on like blood pressure lowering medication. So it was already like way lower than normal. And then they gave me the anesthesia, which can also lower your blood pressure. And it dropped to a pretty low, borderline dangerous level, and I started dry heaving. Like, I couldn't stop either, because I'm the type of person that once I start puking, I can't stop, because it just makes me want to puke more and more and more. But I hadn't had anything to eat or drink, so nothing was coming up. It was just like the inability to stop that dry heaving though. And they were cutting into me the whole time that was happening, which sucked because the only thing I could do was like turn my neck. I couldn't move anything else. And that was a very strange like sensation to like be like throwing up air basically, but not able to like actually like move anything else other than like my throat and head. So that was not fun. But after like a couple minutes, it stopped. And they were able to stabilize my blood pressure and stuff. And then throughout the whole like time after I stopped dry heaving, I felt like my pulse was so slow that I was forgetting to breathe. And I honestly thought that I was like dying, because I kept having to like think to myself, like, you need to take a breath. And then I would be like, and then I would go like what felt like minutes without breathing again. And then I'd be like, you need to take a breath. And then I would go, so because of that, I don't know how much time was passing, but it felt like I was not breathing enough. I would like to think that they were like monitoring me enough that if I wasn't breathing, that they would like make me breathe or something. But it was a very weird sensation to have to like tell myself to breathe, because I felt like I was going minutes and minutes without actually taking a breath, and I felt like I was like suffocating. So that was really strange and not fun at all. But then I heard him cry, and I was like, oh, thank God he's out. Like, at least he's out, and whatever happens, happens. So he got out, and then like a minute later, they were like, Dad, do you want to come see your baby? And so I saw my husband like go around, and I knew that he did not want to see anything going on down there. And so he's like, I looked away the whole time until I got over to where he was. And he's like, I couldn't believe it whenever I saw him. So that was crazy. But anyway, after that, he was just totally silent. Like, Xavier was not making any noise. There was no more crying. It was just like literally like a couple seconds of crying and then nothing. And so whenever he came back around the curtain and he was holding him, dude, he looked so perfect. I've told this story before, and I've been able to do it without crying. But now, anyway, they had cleaned him up and stuff, and so he didn't have like the goo all over him. Like, he had a little cap on, he had a swaddle on, and he was just fast asleep. And he looked so perfect that I literally thought that something had gone wrong. And I thought that they were like not wanting to tell me about it until after I was out of surgery. And I was like, is he okay? Is he okay? And my husband was like, yeah, he's perfect. Look at him. And I felt like I was actually having trouble looking at him because he looked so perfect that I thought that something must be wrong. That's right. And I actually said to him, I think you're lying to me. I think there's something wrong. You need to tell me. And I kept saying, is he breathing? Is he breathing? And he's like, yes, he's fine. He's fine. He's sleeping. And I said, no, he looks too peaceful. Like, he can't be okay. And I just kept saying, don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. I even looked at the anesthesiologist because he's the only other person that I could see. And I was like, tell me, is he okay? Like, don't lie to me. And the anesthesiologist was even laughing at me because he apparently thought that I was just absolutely crazy. But I didn't actually believe that he was okay until I saw him afterward in the recovery room. So anyway, they, sewed me up and told my husband that he could go down to the recovery room and do some skin to skin while they finished me up. So he actually got to have the first skin to skin, which is fine with me. I wanted him to bond with him too. So they wheeled me out, and the whole time I was just thinking, like, I don't know if he's okay. Because I didn't want to believe anybody until I could actually hold him. So, now that I pulled myself together, slightly, they took me down to the recovery room, and my husband was there doing skin to skin, and he immediately brought him over and put him on me, and whenever I saw him open his eyes, I was like, okay, now I can breathe a sigh of relief, that he was perfectly fine. Yes, that's right, because you gave me a scare. You gave me a scare. Yes, you did. And whenever I got to hold him, it was just instant love. So he was born at 4:20 p.m., January 17th, 5 pounds, 14 ounces, 19 and a quarter inches long, and just the most perfect little man. That's right. Such a sweet boy. You my sweet boy. That's right. So I think that maybe covers most of it. I'm going to do other videos, like talking specifically about like C-section and like how it was and recovery and all that stuff. And I'm also going to do a video about like, oh goodness, you hungry? I'm going to do a video about what it was like in the hospital afterward, because there was a lot of like surprising things that I did not think about or know about the like postpartum hospital stay, and then like doing like what I used from my hospital bag and all that stuff. Like I have a ton of videos that I want to do that I've just kind of been slacking on because I just wanted to spend time with him and not really focus on filming a bunch of like in-depth videos for here right now. But I'm gonna get back into the swing of things. He is 3 weeks and 4 days old at this point, so he's almost a month old. That is his birth story. And hopefully I touched on everything. I'm sure I'm gonna watch this back in editing and be like, ugh, I missed out like a ton of things. But if I did, I'll make like a follow-up video or something. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And I guess wraps it up. I need to go feed this little man, and then I need to go feed myself because I'm starving, and I need to get myself together because I'm a little emotional. So there you go. That is it. This is Xavier's birth story, and thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you have not already, because I'm going to be doing more like mom type of videos. My beauty videos are not going away, lifestyle videos are not going away, but this is the most important thing in my life right now, and so the videos will reflect that a little bit more. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.